Hey, what's up, y'all? So I read the book. There's a light novel that kind of got. So there was a book written called Slayers, like back in like the 80s or whatever, and I watched a lot of the anime around it. And I guess they redid the book, or rewrote it or whatever, like the guy originally wrote it. And then I have the book on tape in my like cache of like light novels that I got from audiobook Bay dot something. Anyway, and I saw it and I was like, oh hell yeah, Slayers! I haven't seen that in a while. So let's check out the book. And the book is essentially just like the first few episodes. It's like the first arc of the anime, like the original anime series with Lena and Gowry and stuff and Zagato. If you're familiar with Slayers at all. If you're not, it's like a high fantasy setting. And it's just like fantasy shit. And again, it's from like the 80s, I want to say. Maybe early 90s when I watched it. But it's pretty good. It's funny. Lena is like a smoking hot 14-year-old or something. Of course. I actually think she's supposed to be 15. But who's got like fiery red hair. She's like a super good mage. And then there's Gowry, who's like an idiot knight, but he's super strong and has like the sword of light. And then there's Elgato, who's like a chimera, and he's part stone and all this shit. And then I'm trying to remember what her name is. There's another lady who shows up, and she's an older, mature sorceress, and she's got giant boobs, and there's a lot of emphasis on like boobs and stuff in this. It's like very fan servicey and very for like teenage boys. So I loved it when I was like a teenager, and I was enjoying the fruits of Slayers. So, so I read the light novel. Or I listened to it, I guess. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. So go ahead and like, share, subscribe, comment. I'm super sick right now, but I'm not gonna record this whole thing in one take. So you may get like varying states of my illness throughout this, which will be fun for you, I guess. All right, so chapter 1 starts. We learned that Lena, the sorceress, has beat the shit out of a bunch of bandits, and she took all their treasure because why not? And she claims that they started the fight. But then there's some back and forth with like the bandit leader, or like the new bandit leader, because she killed the previous bandit leader, about who started what and who did what where. And you know, in reality, in her head, she's like, well, I was stumbling along and I needed some treasure, and so I saw some bandits and I was like, fucking YOLO. Anyway, so this Zelf guy who's like he looks like he's like a wizard or something. Anyway, he wants to fight Lena. But then he at the same time he wants her to join the bandits and stuff and to return all the treasure, and she's like, nope. And right before she's supposed to she's gonna blast everybody, this really handsome warrior, and this is Gowry, shows up. Gowry then kicks the shit out of the bandits, and he keeps calling her Little Miss because he thinks she's a child, and like she's 15, so she's definitely like a child. Especially this guy's like an adult, like 20 something. Anyway, they decided to join up mostly because Gowry's like an honorable knight, and he wants to make sure this like tiny girl's just wandering around in this bandit-filled forest is like okay, and Lena's kind of like upset about it, but at the same time she's like, yeah, whatever. And then she at one point she's like, why do you think I'm so little? And he like points at her boobs. And she gets super mad because it's like, because she's very sensitive about her like developing breasts, or they're fully developed. I mean, at 15 they're probably developed. They got to develop some more, but you never know. Maybe she matured early. Welcome to Slayers. It's the best. Anyway, so they travel for a whole day and they get super hungry, and so she uses like her magic to like fish really good, and they gather a ton of fish and they eat it up. And the Gowry's like still hungry because he's like a young adult, and he's been being a warrior, doing warrior stuff, so he's got the munchies. So she goes to like get some more, but then they realize they're surrounded by goblins, and so Gowry's like, all right, time to fight. And then Lena's like, nah, I got something instead. So she like starts pulling out fish and tossing them to the goblins, and the goblins come off, and then she like teaches them how to fish and stuff, while the goblins are like fishing in this like magic pond, or a pond that she magicked to have lots of fish. They sneak off. They get to a town nearby, and they're like eating up real food and talking about stuff. And one of the things about Lena is that she can eat. Like she can eat. She eats it up. And while they're there, they get accosted by Zelf again, who's the bandit. So they got accosted by like the next bandit leader, and then this guy is the bandit mage. So he's like the new leader. And they go back and forth some more. And this guy brought trolls this time, and he's like, oh, if you're not gonna give me what I want, I'm gonna fucking I'm gonna get you. And she's like, whatever, I'm not giving you shit. And so then the fight starts, and Lena jumps around and just like lightly touches all the trolls, and then comes back, and Gowry's just sitting there watching, and she's like, would you like to help? And he's like, what am I supposed to do? They're trolls, like I'm gonna stab them and then they're just gonna heal up. And she's like, no, I don't think so, just hit them all with just give them, scratch them, and they'll be dead. And Gowry's like, all right. So he takes some acorns and just like flicks them at all the trolls, and then they like die. They like reverse regenerate, and so they all just like keel over, and then the mage is like, holy shit, and he like runs off. And what happened was that Lena, when she touched them, she cast like some magic spell, which is like the reverse of regeneration. So as soon as the regeneration power like kicked in, it like did the complete opposite. Or sorry, it's not the reverse. It reversed the regeneration abilities. After that's all done, the innkeeper's like pissed. There's all this blood and guts and like dead trolls lying everywhere and stuff. And then Lena uses the magic of being a cute girl to like ease his burdens, plus a bunch of money, like some gems she stole from the bandits. At that juncture, Gowry and Lena head to their room. And then Gary's like, wait, what happened? How'd you get involved with these bandits in the first place? And Lena gives him some old bullshit about like helping villagers or getting like a request or whatever. And tee-hee-hee, don't worry about it. And then also they talk about how did they track him down to this village? Like, how did the mage get here? And it's like, oh, there must be an item here that has like some sort of thing on it. So she like undoes all that magic over all the items to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because clearly they want something from the stolen treasure, but they can't figure out exactly what it is. And she's like, whatever, YOLO. So this guy's name is Zelgado. This is the Chimera guy I was talking about earlier, who's like stone-faced or whatever. And he is here with Zelf, who's like the mummy guy who got blasted when she did the first bandit attack. And he wants one of the items back that was stolen. And he's very mysterious about the whole situation. At this point, he offers to buy it for any price that she wants, and she wants 10 times the asking price. And they're like, what? No, hell no. That's way too much. So they argue back and forth. Lena makes fun of the sorcerer because he ran away when she cast like a quote-unquote light spell. Or when she quoted a fireball, but it was really just a light spell from earlier. And then finally Zelgado and Zelf are like, whatever, fuck you. I swear we're going to get that item, and we'll get it at some point. The next day, Gowry and Lena are traveling, and they get attacked by bandits. At some point, Gowry's just fighting all by himself. And then he walks up to Lena after the battle and is like, hey, are you okay? Normally you're like involved, you're not doing anything. Are you injured or anything? And she's like, yeah, I got a little hurt here. So she casts a healing spell on herself. Gowry's still concerned about her, so he picks her up and carries her off to her chagrin. And then at the night, some assassins come. Lena catches them with fireballs because they're at another inn. So these assassins roll in. She blasts them with a fireball. Gowry comes out to check on what's going on. And then we get introduced to this human fire guy. And then Gowry's about ready to fight with him when all of a sudden a cleric shows up. And he mind controls the trolls and the fighter that are there to like kill them, to like wander the fuck off. At that point, this guy talks about the item that Zelgado that wanted, and also that Zelgado is his enemy as well. He identifies him as being a chimera, and that Zelgado's main goal is to resurrect the Dark Lord. This priest is identified as Rezo the Red Priest, he's super famous. Lena's like, oh, you're the famous Rezo? And Lena explains to Gowry that he kind of randomly wanders around, casts miracles, all this stuff. Gowry's like very unimpressed. He's like actually very concerned. But Lena's like, I don't know, maybe we should join forces with this guy. And then at that point, he goes into her room, the priest, casts some sort of spell, and then says, from the shadows, I will help you, and disappears. Lena looks in her room, and like all the damage she did with the fireballs to the trolls and whatnot, it's fixed. So she's like, oh, awesome, that's great. Lena decides she's going to go stay in Gowry's room anyway, so they can be safe. And they get into like a weird argument where they both end up sleeping on the floor because he's like, I am a knight, you're a young lass, you can sleep in my bed. And she's like, I don't want to take your bed. And he's like, I will sleep on the floor. And she's like, I'm not going to sleep in the bed either, I'm going to sleep on the floor. So they both end up sleeping on the floor. And the next day as they're traveling, they're talking about the Dark Lord. It's like Shabagnendo, the Dark Lord. There's like a whole mythology here, so I'm going to try to recount what I can remember from what I wrote down. It's like 5,000 years ago, there was a dragon. It fought and defeated. Oh no, there was a holy dragon that fought and defeated Shabagnendo, and then it split into like 4 pieces, like green dragon, red dragon, something, east northwest kind of situation. And then 1,000 years ago, there was a battle like between Shabagnendo and like the water dragon aspect, and the water dragon was killed. But the Dark Lord's minions that attacked also got killed as well. But because the water dragon, like the seal on like Shabagnendo or whatever, got released, this is when all the dark beasts started showing up. So between that like 5,000 and 1,000 years, there was like some peace because the dragon sealed off everything. But in the last 1,000 years, there's been like beasts. I'm assuming this is like the trolls and whatnot. Let's see. Oh, and at this point, Gowry's like, I don't know, I don't trust this Rezo guy. And Lena's like, yeah, I don't know if I trust him either. He could just be faking this whole red priest thing. It could be somebody else. And this is when we find out, oh yeah, she's 15 for sure. She mentions that she's 15. And then they kind of get into a discussion, and she's like, we're in a bad spot right now because I'm going to have to completely rely on you to like fight bandits or assassins or whatever. And the guy was like, why is that? And she's like, I don't want to talk about it. And the guy was like, is it because you're on your period? And it is! That's exactly why. So apparently, the menstrual cycle fucks with like female wizards' ability to like do mana and shit. So if they get attacked by Zelgado, however, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And Rutro, they run into Zelgado, and now he's with the werewolf guy. Lena taunts them both and then sends Gowry to go fight them. Then she can fight. And then that merc who showed up the other night with the trolls who got like mind controlled away by Rezo, he shows up and the battle commences. And Lena gets knocked out from behind. So she wakes up the next day, or later on in like an old church, and she's like not only knocked out, she's now hanging like kind of like a fish or something. She's hanging with like her arms and legs up in the air from the ceiling. And now there's Zelgado, there's Zelf, who's the wizard guy, and then there's like a new character. There's like this fish man person. And the fighter who showed up and knocked her out and Gowry are not there. So then they start bugging her about this idol. And she's like, I don't have it. And they're like, why can't we find it? Why isn't the tracer working? And she's like, I cast a protection spell on it, so go fuck yourselves. And then they start questioning why she was such a pushover. And she's like, it's none of your damn business. At this point, Zelf tells the werewolf guy to go bite her. And he's like, nah, not my type. Like, literally, go kiss her. Go give her, like, some smooches or go eat her up. And he's like, nah, not my type. She's too ugly or whatever. And then they're like, well, what about you, fish guy? And he's like, oh, you want me to kiss her? And then he's like, hell no, get the fuck out of here. And then the fish guy is like, oh, this is so wonderful. Like, I don't know if I can do this for sure because in my culture, when we kiss, that means we're married. So maybe we should discuss the marriage ceremony first. And then everyone starts arguing about this, about and who's going to kiss her. And they're like, well, Zelf, you're a human. Why don't you kiss her? And he's like, ugh, boo. He gags. And then he like insults her tiny breasts and stuff. And then like no one ends up doing anything. Later on in the evenings, Lena's still just kind of hanging there. Zagato comes in and he releases her and gives her all her stuff back. And she's like, Nani desu ka? And he's like, I'm done with this shit. And she's like, okie dokie, let's go. And so they run off. Zagato has to carry Lena because she's been like hanging all day, so she's like her muscles are all tired and stuff, like gone like numb. And when they're escaping, they run into Rizzo, and then Rizzo and Delgado and Lena, they all start arguing about stuff, and about a power that changes. About how Zelgado came to Rezo and was like, I'd like to have more power, and that Rezo gave him his wish, which was turn him into like this monster essentially, and that's not what he wanted, and he was tricked, and he's angry about it. And then they're able to like make their escape. Later on, while Zelgado is resting with Lena, he explains that Rezo is looking for the Philosopher's Stone. What is the Philosopher's Stone in this world? We all know what the Philosopher's Stone is, right? Who knows? It's like different in everything. So in this world, in this universe, it amplifies magic. So Rezo, the blind, he's the red priest, but he's also the blind priest. He was born blind. So he spent his whole life like learning white magic with the sole purpose of like curing himself. And when that didn't work, he started learning black and shamanistic magic. So there's three kinds of magic in this world. There's white, black, and shamanistic. So apparently Zelgado is also related to Rezo. He's like the grandson of Rezo. So Rezo's been around for like a long time. He's used all this magic to keep himself like alive and going for all this time. After they have like this whole discussion, Lena decides it's time to take a nap. So she does. And when she wakes up, they're surrounded by trolls. And the werewolf guy is leading them. So the Zelgado, Lena, and the werewolf guy, they taunt each other back and forth. And then it's time to get this fight going. So Zelgado uses some spike earth magic to kill all the trolls, which lifts them off the ground and it pierces them. So I guess their regeneration doesn't really work. And then he starts sword fighting with the werewolf. And we get like a little shonen anime fight between them. And in the battle, every time he like stabs the werewolf, he just like heals it up. Because guess what? He's part troll. Bum, bum, bum. Eventually, he gets the werewolf to just run away. And as he's running away, the werewolf tosses something in like a nearby lake. So when Lena and Zelgado are like, man, I'm tired, we should get some water. They go over there, but Lena's like, wait, it's poisoned. Let's not drink it. And he's like, how'd you know that? And it's like, well, he threw something in the water, and then like I did some magic and figured it out. All right, so moving on. They head to Atlas City, which is where Gowry's been hanging out waiting for them. While they're traveling, they get attacked multiple times by different goons throughout the day, throughout the night. Other randos show up. Some other like random goon characters who are like named characters show up. There's like a shonen anime battle between Lena, Zelgado, these new guys. I didn't write their names down because I got beat, and that was like the end of that. Or they start to get they're fighting. And then Lena is fighting like a demon wizard who's doing like demon wizard magic, and she's starting to struggle. But then Gowry shows up to save the day, and he takes out he's like, I'm gonna fight you. And the guy's like, oh, there's nothing you can do with your pitiful sword or whatever. And so Gowry does something to the blade of his sword, and then takes the blade off, because his sword is actually dun dun dun, the Sword of Light. And he just beats the shit out of this wizard with the Sword of Light, which is like a lightsaber, but like a sword lightsaber thingy. Anyway, easy peasy. And Lena's like, I want that sword. And Gowry's like, what? No, absolutely not. And she's like, please, please, please. And he's like, no, it's a family heirloom. And she's like, well, I'm going to stick around with you until you finally give up and give it to me. And he's like, it's never going to happen. So then they go to help Zelgado. He's fighting some mantis creature. And then a man runs up with a halberd and kills the mantis, right as the mantis is about to do some serious damage to Zelgado. And it's Zelf. Yep, it's Zelf, the little mummy wizard guy or whatever. And along with Rodimus. Rodimus is the warrior guy. He's the middle-aged. And Zelf is identified by Lena. She's like, wow, he's a hunk. This guy's super handsome for being like a middle-aged man. And Gowry's like, who the fuck are all these people, and why are we on their team? So they go a little ways away, and they start talking about that, and Lena like catches them up on everything that's going on. And she's still not going to give Zelgado the Philosopher's Stone or tell him where it's at or anything. And so Zelgado's like, well, I need to get it to stop Reza or whatever. And then Gowry's like, no, I will defend the honor of Lena or whatever. And they start going at it, and so they're about to fight, and Lena's like, you got to stop. And then Rizzo shows up. What? And he grabs Lena and puts a needle to her neck, or like in her neck, and threatens everybody. Like, I will kill this motherfucker if I don't get what I want. And so Gowry tosses him the idol with the stone in it, specifically to save Lena, even though Lena's like, don't do it. And then Reza like breaks open the statue, or like destroys it with like his magic, and then he just fucking eats the stone and transforms into like a Resident Evil bad guy. He transforms into like a manifestation of Shabanignu. And Zelf is like, oh, hells no. And so he starts casting Dragon Slave, which Lena describes as like the most powerful spell known to man. It just causes huge damage and like all these problems and whatnot. So he does, and everyone's like, fuck. But Shabanignu's fine. He's totally fine. It doesn't hurt him at all. And so Shabanignu, the Rezo Shabanignu, then goes and kills Zelf and Rodimus, while and then they start having like a discussion about magic, about how shamanistic, there's like a shamanistic spell that's like a shield, and that this specific like shield spell is just as strong as Dragon Slave. And so because Rezo knows, or Shabanignu knows, like shamanistic black and white magic, that this shield is going to protect him from like any magic. And so magic is not going to work at all. And then Gowry's like, why not? It's we have to go into like a whole conversation about magic, about the counter magics and all this stuff. And then they come to the conclusion that the only answer they got is the Sword of Light. And then excuse me, jeez. And then Rezo shows up, taunts them. Gowry's goes to hit him, and then Rezo just grabs a fucking sword and then tosses Gowry away with the sword. And then Rezo like ties up Zelgado with like a ring of magic that's like turning him to stone or something. And at that point, Lena's like, give me the sword right now. And Gowry's like, no. What are you going to do? And she's like, I'm going to infuse it with magic. And he's like, oh, that's a good idea, actually. So he tosses her the hill so she can combine the power of the Sword of Light with like the power of dark magic. And that should be enough to like crack through Shabanignu's like existence or whatever. So she activates it. She calls upon black magic. And then she starts summoning like Giga Break or Giga Slave, which is like accessing powers from like the Lord of Nightmares. And while she's doing that, Rezo's like, the fuck? How can you do that? No, I don't want to do that. Like, god damn it. And then Lena, she's starting to like have some issues because she's like, oh man, this spell's not going to be ready by the time this guy comes over and kills me. But Zelgado recognizes it, and so he calls out and starts charting Rezo, which distracts him enough for Lena to finish the spell and then use it. So she does this like Giga Break strike with like the Sword of Light and her magic on Shabanignu, and then smash. And then after the smoke clears, they start hearing laughter and also a cracking sound. And then the Demon Lord is still standing there, and he's like giggling to himself, but then his body starts just like cracking to pieces and falling, and he starts like being like, oh, this was so excellent, I'm so sad I'll never be able to fight you again, Lena. Oh man, when I get reborn in like 100 years, you'll be dead. That'll be so, or 200 years, that'll be so unfortunate, because I wish I could fight you again. You were like one of the most you were the most fun like opponents ever. Then he just like cracks and fades away. And that leads us to the epilogue. So a little bit later on, Lena's explaining explains to everybody that it wasn't just like her power and the dark magic and the light sword, but that there was a piece of Rizzo inside who like regretted his decision to be combined with the Dark Lord, even though he got like his ruby eyes that allowed him to see because he was completely possessed. And that Rezo was able to like, it seems like the distraction that Delgado made, like Chef Benigno was not going to like fall for it, but Rezo like kind of forced hands to like get him to like take enough control to like be distracted for a moment so that Lena can finish the spell and destroy the Demon Lord. And at that point, Delgado and Gower are like, hey Lena, your beautiful red hair is now silver. And she's like, oh yeah, that means I used too much magic, my bad. And then Delgado's like, well, that was fun, you guys, but I got other shit to do, so I'll see you around, I guess. And then he takes off. And then Lena starts begging for the Sword of Light again. She's like, I need that sword. I used it so well. I want to use it again. And he's like, nope. And again, she reiterates that, like, well, as long as you got that Sword of Light, I'm going to follow you around until you give it to me. And he's like, okie dokie. And that's the end. Goodness. Again, sorry, I'm a little sick. But yeah, that's Slayers, the light novel, Volume 1. That's all I got. So it's just like a little mini review. If you liked what you heard, you can get the anime series places. Like, honestly, you can just like watch it online for free if you like know where to look, or you can get it from like X337T or whatever it's called. Pretty much any like anime downloading site. It's an old one, but you can get like it fully dubbed or subbed or whatever. There's a lot of it. Slayers is really good. It's really fun and kind of lighthearted, and it's just like good times at WoW. So highly recommend. I'm sure you can find the books around too if you really want, but I enjoyed reading it, and I wouldn't mind reading more. It's really just kind of like fun, dumb fun. But yeah, anyway, so go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later.